Is this going? Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your pushback channel. Tacitus today at your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about interracial marriages. Now, this is a big issue in the West at the moment because the globalists who control all the Western governments are forcing, against the will of the people, forcing black, brown, peasant migration to the West, to the white West. And, we get no say in this. It's just forced on us. But these people, because of multiculturalism and the various attitudes that the globalists, again, are pushing, these people aren't integrating, don't want to integrate. They're living in their subgroups. Now, some of them are absolutely steadfast in having a separate subgroup. People from the subcontinent, for example, Indians as a case in point, they're 5, 6, 7 generations Western born in the West, and they're still very determined to keep their genetic purity and have a completely separate subgroup. In Australia, they believe they're the natural, there's a lot of Brahmins and so on again, they believe they're the natural inheritors of Australia. They've come to take over and show the silly white boys how it's done. But there are various other groups, the Islamic groups, they want to stay, not racially per se, but that they want to stay spiritually, if you like, separate, and engage in very pious observance of their religion. And they need to keep a separate group in order to have those observances and to maintain such levels of piety, and various other groups that just don't mix, don't want to mix, and where intermarriage is very low. Now, this government article claimed it's just pure propaganda, absolute lies, like everything that comes out of globalist controlled governments these days. It's all designed to brainwash and control us, not to inform. And they were claiming that interracial marriages are running at 20 to 25%. Now, I don't know in what separate universe that they perceive that's happening. Maybe by separate, interracial, they say, a white Welsh Christian marries a white English Christian or something like that. Maybe that's their thing, and they go, oh, interracial. But really, in interracial marriages amongst black and brown people is to white people is minuscule. Generously, I'd say it's 2%. Even if we said that amongst brown and black people that are born in the West, the interracial marriages are maybe 3%, 4%. That's being incredibly generous. So when I saw this article, my wife said wanted to do some shopping, so I said, well, hey, how about we go to a shopping centre, which is quite a bit further away, another 20 minutes, 30 minutes drive, whatever it was. I don't like going there, but anyway, it's sort of in Sydney, it's like the epicenter of non-white. This place was flooded with non-white people. 25 years ago, you'd be lucky to see, you'd see the occasional non-white person here or there, and there were so few of them, it was even slightly exotic. Where are you from? Oh, you're from the Philippines. Oh, wow. What brought you here? And it would be a matter for chatty discussion. But now it's 91% non-white. And if there are any white people, they're hard to see in the shopping centre. But anyway, there's so okay. The government says that there's this very high rate of interracial marriages. Now, this is probably one of the first areas in Australia that was overrun with non-white people. Indians and Asians and that sort of thing. That this is the first part of Sydney that they've started to appear in large numbers. So you've got a lot of people here that are teenagers, say probably 20 years old. Because as soon as the black and brown people arrive, they immediately procreate for the anchor baby effect. But so there's a lot of young black and brown people in this area that again would be 21, 22 years old, probably at the upper end, and of course, going all through the ages down from there. But this would be the area where you get the biggest cluster. So it gives you the best opportunity to test this theory or this claim, which is blatantly false. It's false before you can go and have a look. But I thought, well, maybe it's a few years since I've been at this place. Maybe things have improved. As in there's more interracial marriages. I didn't think there would be, but anyway, went to have a look. So I just counted 200 couples going by. I plonked myself right in the middle of a sort of a busy. This is in a shopping mall. Okay, so busy sort of center point, if you like, in the shopping mall where I'd get the biggest flow of traffic and looking at. So I went up to 200. Now there were some, like there was somebody that looked like they were Tibetan, something like that, from around there, and they were with someone that looked like they were from, say, southern China, Sichuan, somewhere around there, Canton, that type of thing. So I look. So that was one. I mean, would you call it interracial? A bit of a stretch. There was. Somebody who looked like they were probably Persian, Iranian, Iraqi, somewhere around that part of town, and or that part of the world rather, and they were with someone who I would suspect was probably Afghani, maybe Pakistani. But again, would you call that interracial? I'm not sure you would. It's a bit of a stretch there, but. I saw a really nerdy-looking white guy, and he was with a girl who was half Asian, so maybe half Chinese. So again, kind of interracial, I guess, but really no. You're looking 1-2% tops. If it's white people, or if it's Indians marrying outside of the Indian diaspora, that certainly from that sample it's 0% with anybody, whether it be whites or anyone else. The Chinese, maybe 1%. They'd probably be more likely, like the people from Hong Kong, because they're quite used to white people being around. So, but the main reason that if you were Chinese in a place like Hong Kong or Singapore, you'd get together with a white guy, is because he'd have a better job, better money, and could show you a better time, and there'd be more money to look after your relatives, that sort of thing. So, but now that's changing. The well-paid jobs are no longer held exclusively by white people. So, you can do just as well in the money stakes of marrying an Asian guy. So that's also a dynamic that's changed. When I first started going to Asia, the Asian girls were very, very interested in getting together with as they call it, a Western guy, and they were quite candid about it. And expat white guys who'd been in places like Hong Kong and Singapore had zero trouble picking up a local girl that wanted the benefit of the prestige and the big money, that sort of stuff. And that was very much part of the shtick around there. Now, so if there is this interracial marriage, it's definitely not happening in this. And again, these are people that are born in Australia. So then I looked at things like, well, what about groups of people hanging out, like a bunch of schoolgirls, a bunch of schoolboys, that sort of thing? Were they hanging out? Were those groups interracial? I mean, obviously not marriage, but just in multiple races hanging out together. That was also very rare. They'd be sticking doggedly, if you like, to their racial groups. There was the odd one here and there, but not much, and they were just out for recreation. They were just a bunch of kids together. They weren't getting married. Like that would be, you'd think, the easiest place for interracial mixing. You think that would be the easiest place, like they go to school together, these people, but no. Even walking through the like the food court area, thinking, well, there must be some there, like groups of people together. Maybe they just know each other from school. Hey, how you going? And they'd sit down and have a bit of lunch together. No, even that they were again sticking to racial groups. There were groups around in the supermarket, groups of Indians all together as Indians wearing the national dress and that sort of thing. Even people that were speaking in broad Australian accents would when in the group, they would talk to each other in their home language. Um, so there wasn't really much mixing there. Maybe a little bit more. I'll be generous and say 10% mixing, but that would be it. And again, when these people get old enough where they start having boyfriends and girlfriends and intimate partners, that sort of thing, again, they're sticking very much to their diaspora. I mean, some of like this, some Korean ladies I knew, they would come to Australia to because they just wanted to experience getting laid with a white boy, but they had no intention of marrying them. Far from it. They'd go back to Korea and marry a good Korean boy from a good family, whatever the thing, and the parents and the wider sort of family group would play a role in selecting partners and be approving of this family or that family and so on. So this idea of marrying for love, not that it doesn't happen, it does. People still fall in love, but the family input is much bigger than you'd expect generally in a white family in the West. So anyway, there is certainly minimal, tiny proportion of interracial marriages. Again, I 1.5%, somewhere around there. And even interracial groups of friends going around, just going out to, for just purely recreational purposes, going to the movies or something. It's still very low. Again, you'd expect to be much higher. They're going to school together. They're born here. They've been around white people all the time, but still, it's not happening. Now, the general propaganda line is just all those evil fucking fascist Nazi Hitler white people refusing to have anything to do with these brown and black people. It's those damn white Nazis, white supremacists. And if we can only stop their damn Hitler behaviour, then everything will be fine. But isn't that the same with everything? Everything the globalists push. It's only white people who can be bad. And I'm sick of hearing it, really. And I think you are too. But can interracial marriage ever occur? I mean, could Western governments force it? Brainwashing's not really working. The advertising blitz of the last few years, where every couple you see on TV is a mixed race couple, usually black man, very cultured, very urbane, very fit, very photogenic, very sophisticated, with white girl. I think in my entire life, and I've met a lot of black people, spent a lot of time in the United States and elsewhere, and talking to black African executives and things like that in various industries. And I can count, and in my whole life, I can count on one hand people who are that good looking, sophisticated, and so on. You just don't meet them; they're not around. Now, would there be some? I guess, but the way it appears on TV, every black man is urbane, sophisticated, super fit, well off, got a great job, and is really into white chicks. But that's utter nonsense, as we know. That's just a fantasy world that exists only in the minds of the deluded. It doesn't have any resemblance to reality. Is it nudging particularly white girls towards that sort of imagining or dreaming of those sort of possibilities? Well, the rate that the quotas, race and gender quotas are keeping straight white males out of employment and artificially boosting the employment of black and brown people, non-meritorious boosting, by the way, and then maybe there won't be any straight white boys around for these girls to date anyway. So they better get used to getting together with black guys, because they'll be the only ones with any fucking jobs. But I can't see it happening. unless there's draconian things, if you don't marry a black guy, we'll take you out the back and shoot you. Unless it gets to sort of those type of levels, I can't see it happening. Or maybe you'll get 100% tax on any income. Or if when you retire, we're going to deny you any sort of age pension benefits unless you marry a black guy or marry a non-white person. Maybe that's they're going to have to go to those levels, I think. But my take is they just force white people to do it. They wouldn't force the others. Like for example, the Indians are the most resistant to marrying outside of their diaspora. Why aren't they targeted for, hey, you better marry a white person or you're in deep shit? I don't think the globalist controlled governments will do that. Not to the brown and black people anyway. Now, just on the other side, I was sort of thinking to myself as another test, I should go to an area that's close to 100% Asian and brown. You're lucky to see a white person in one place. Now, they're more recent arrivals, so there's not as a higher proportion of kids that were born here. These people came sort of after probably 2003, 2004. It really kicked off. So they'd just be, again, they madly procreate as soon as they arrive. But then the kids there would be sort of maybe senior high school at the oldest. But anyway, I thought I'd go and have a look and say, all right, I assume, what if I was a single guy on the make looking for a marriage partner? And I went with a colleague. And so we sat and said, okay, well, how many, it's not just a case of in-group preference here. Well, there's an element of that, but how many, would I say, gee, I wouldn't mind talking to her about getting married or going out on a date or that type of scenario. I mean, I wasn't looking for a date, but I was looking. Well, would I do it if I had that mission? I had that. Somebody said you got to go out to this place where there's about zero white people, and you have to pick a partner that you would marry and procreate with, and that sort of thing. Here you go. Go out there and find one. So now I used to do a lot of business traveling around Asia, and I was never really into Asian chicks, and so it kind of didn't do much for me. I don't know. I just didn't. I didn't sort of have negative views necessarily. Just didn't do anything for me. So so sitting there just looking, and I would be sort of about 1 out of 500 would say, well, gee, that could be a possibility. Now, I had to sit there for quite a while, actually, to get those numbers. So collecting all this data for my listeners here, hey, I'm going out of my way, you guys. So about 1 in 500, give or take. And so the odds would be fairly small. Would it be impossible? No. Now, if I sit in an area where it's nearly all white people, it could be, 3 or 4 out of 100, say. So many times, so the likelihood of me seeing someone that I'd be interested in possibility, having a relationship with would be, say 12 to 15 times higher amongst white people than it would be with non-white people. So that would give a proportion. Now, if you look at that in the terms of mathematical probability and possibility, all that sort of thing, then that's quite a big difference. So my view is it's not an issue of racism or anything. That's nonsense. It's there is an element of in-group preference, but my sort of feeling was that just the pure preference that people have over what, when they look at somebody, like in this case, girls that I was looking at, how many of those, in theory, would I be interested in talking to about the possibility of a relationship, beginning with just basic dating and that sort of stuff. And the number's quite small. Now, it differs person to person. My colleague, for example, he rather likes Asian girls, and they're mostly Asian. So he likes Asian girls, so he had a much higher rate. So, but he's very fair skinned, like the freckles, that sort of stuff, and he finds Asian girls are really attracted to him, and he finds them easier to get a date with than he does white girls. So so that's a factor there. It's just how easy it is to to get a date, for example. So I think that just looking at that, I think most people from most racial groups, whether it's black or Asian or white, it doesn't matter. And putting aside, say, intense pressure like the Indian families do, enforcing their children to only marry other Indians, even putting things like that aside, I think there's a natural preference for your own tribal group. Now, it doesn't mean that you won't, date and have a good time with someone like that, but you wouldn't marry somebody, particularly if you're looking at procreation and putting your time and resources into something you need to be longer term if you're going to invest over that period of time. So just my thoughts there. I'd be interested in seeing your thoughts below, but I think this interracial marrying thing, even aside from all the propaganda, is just a pipe dream. It's just pie in the sky. I just don't think it's going to happen. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.